All right, we are going to talk a lot about this upcoming road trip for Arizona basketball, the meaning of it, the breakdowns, everything you need to know, and because this is a very important weekend. So let's get started here on Locked On Wildcats.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, we got a lot to get to this show. Excuse me. But big thing we're going to be talking about is Arizona and their trip to the Washington schools. Now, with the Washington schools, everybody knows that they came into McHale and, quite frankly, probably should have gone 2-0 this past couple weeks ago. It was just not a good performance for the Cats, to put it mildly. And start with Washington. Washington's not very good. I think we know that. But I think the thing with Washington is that you're kind of looking at it and you're like, all right, they haven't played very good against. They haven't played very well against anybody really. Mike Hopkins is far from a dynamic coach. And but they came in and they played really well against Arizona. And that's kind of the thing you need to remember too. Arizona is very, very good, but they're also not above being able to be beaten by bad teams. I mean, we've seen that this year. And like I said, even though Arizona beat Washington probably should have beaten Arizona. And I can't remember really why. Arizona didn't take them seriously, but it might have been a blessing in disguise because the next time that the next game, Arizona clearly had not learned their lessons against Washington State. And they went out there and they got pulverized by Washington State at home. And again, like I said, Arizona is not good enough to discuss or to beat teams that on a given day are really motivated. Look at Washington State. Mohamed Gay is one of the best big men in the entire conference. You watch him, you know exactly what he's long, he's athletic, and he's a difference maker out there. Players like that just don't come around in the conference all the time, but they are out there, and he certainly is one of those players. Now, some of the other guys that I think you need to keep an eye on in this game, because there's going to be a lot of different players for Washington. Keion Brooks, as everybody knows, Kentucky transfer, big time recruit, and a guy that can put up 15, 16 points per game. And this isn't like Arizona's team last year. Even though Arizona's ranked 6th, this is a team that doesn't have the margin for error that last year's team did. When you lose Ben Mathurin, that's a big loss, because you watch him and what he's doing in the NBA right now, and he's a bad boy out there. I mean, you watch him, he's a player that you can win a lot of games with as your main guy. Then you look at Dalen Terry, another guy that Arizona hasn't really been able to replace, because it's hard to replace guys like that. I think a lot of people look at stats and they're like, oh, he averaged 8 points and 5 rebounds, whatever. You can replace that. But no, it's all kinds of different things out there. It's the fact that he can get rebounds. He can get out in the passing lane. He can just make plays happen out there. And again, Arizona hasn't been able to really replace that. I think they thought that maybe that Arizona could be, I think they thought that, maybe Pella Larson could do that. It could be kind of a committee by approach type thing. And that just hasn't really happened, but they found it out in other ways. And I think that's why Tommy Lloyd has done such a good job. But before we get to Tommy Lloyd and if this is his best coaching job, I think that you got to look at it and just say that, Arizona's got to bring their game, because if you go in there and you lose to the Washington schools, all the goodwill from this past weekend is kind of washed away, because these aren't good teams that Arizona's playing. And quite frankly, Arizona should be able to beat both of these teams. And so that's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of where I'm at on, when it comes to the University of Arizona and basketball. I want to talk a lot about Tommy Lloyd and the job he's done, because as many of you know, going into the year, I thought that this was going to be a team that pretty much would be good. But at the same time, I thought it had limitations, and I still think it certainly should. But I do think that right now Arizona is one of the top 10 teams in the country. But again, I didn't think that they had the personnel to be able to make that one happen. And the main reason I didn't think they had the personnel is because, again, it's not as talented a team as last year. But what Tommy Lloyd has been able to do is he's been able to get guys like Azuolas Tubelis. He's been able to get players like he's been able to get players to step their game up. I don't know anybody who thought Oumar Ballo was going to be that dude. But Oumar Ballo has been that dude, and he's been you watch him and you're like, okay, he's much better than he was before. He's much stronger. He's in much better shape. Again, he was able to do some really, really good things out there. And that's to Tommy Lloyd's credit, because last year was all about getting up and down. You got Ben Mathurin. You got Ben Mathurin. And not only do you have Ben Mathurin, you've got a guy in Dalen Terry again that can facilitate things. You got Christian Coloco on the back ends. On the back end, I just didn't think they'd be able to replace him, and they have been able to replace him. So now you say to yourself, Mike, why are you telling me all this? I know all of this. It's because we can't take it for granted, because Arizona fans grew up with Arizona fans came up with Arizona football fans came up, Arizona basketball fans came up with Lute Olson. So I think you just think that, you're like, this is just how it is. And then we quickly figured out, I love Kevin O'Neal, but at the end of the day, not sure anybody's really looking at Kevin O'Neal as a top flight coach, even though I love KO. We all know that. Then Russ Pennell comes in, great, did really well, but nobody felt that was a long-term solution. Then on top of that, you've got, Sean Miller comes in, and Sean Miller, as much as I'm not a huge fan of him personally, I do think that he's been a very, very good, or he was very good for Arizona and what they were able to do, or what they needed this past year. So that was big, but Tommy Lloyd's taken it to a new level. And not only is Tommy Lloyd taken it to a new level, he has been he's been a guy who has been, he's been pretty much perfect for everything. So we can't take for granted what Tommy Lloyd has been able to do here at the University of Arizona. I mean, I certainly don't take it for granted, and nobody else really should either, because he's been fantastic. And what you see right now is a program that right now is pretty much going to be sustainable. Now, a lot of people ask, what about his recruiting? Lloyd's recruiting is going to come around. Again, it already is good enough because, again, he can get the players that he wants. If you talk to him off record, you can tell that he's comfortable with the players that he can get. But it's also going to be it's going to be fascinating to see what exactly transpires here. But Jamari Phillips coming in, already a big-time recruit. We know that. And not only is Jamari Phillips coming in, he's going to be, he's already a big-time player. We know that. Carter Bryant's probably, Carter Bryant, everybody looks, Carter Bryant looks pretty good. And so that's something that I think people need to keep an eye on as well. But, it's right now we're just kind of in a interesting situation, and we'll continue it. But again, don't take Tommy Lloyd for granted. That was basically my only point that I wanted to make right here, because again, what he's doing right now, the fact that we can debate is fairly impressive stuff right here with Tommy Lloyd. All right, now I want to tell you about FanDuel. Here's the deal with FanDuel. Everybody has heard of FanDuel, correct? You've heard of FanDuel. I've heard of FanDuel. You've heard of FanDuel. I've heard of FanDuel. Everybody's heard of FanDuel. So the great thing about it is that he right now the great thing about it is it just works. And I think the thing about it that it just works is that you look at it and you're thinking to yourself, okay, what about FanDuel? First of all, they got great deals going on right now at FanDuel. And I think that's the thing that is incredibly impressive to so many people. You can put down money, and you know what? You can get a pretty good deal out of it right there. A lot of times, put down $5, you get $200 in free plays. So again, that's the great thing. Make every moment more. Move your first $5 to get $150 in free bets to win or lose. FanDuel.com, locked on today to get started. 21 and up. And again, check it out. FanDuel, FanDuel, you can place your $5 and get $150 in free bets. Win or lose, visit FanDuel.com, locked on to get started today. It's great stuff. So that's kind of where we're at with FanDuel. Okay, now let's take a quick break. We'll come back with you, and we're going to talk a little bit about Arizona and what teams that are where teams are basically at right now. All right. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. And let's talk a little bit about Arizona and where they stack up in the conference. The great thing about Arizona right now is that when you watch this team, you think to yourself, all right, what are they really missing? Because again, it's not a great team from an athletic perspective. I think we all know that. But there are also some other interesting things that we can look at and say, okay, that's what Arizona does really well. And one thing that Arizona does really, really well is, and again, they they beat you up, and they play to their strengths. And not only do they play to their strengths, they've got a bunch of guys out there that want to do what Arizona needs them to do. And I think that's the best part about it. I think that's the best part about it, is that everybody knows their role. There's no issues in play right now. There's no issues in play, and I think that's something that's pretty interesting to see what Arizona's got right now. Where do you see Arizona? Where do you see Arizona right now in the grand scheme of things? I think that they're basically a team that is kind of in that realm that they're somewhere in that, in that top 10. I don't think that they're in the that top. I don't think they're in that top like 2 tier, because again, I think Alabama, and I think UCLA. UCLA. I think Alabama. I think Houston are the 2 best teams. But what's fascinating to me about both of those teams is what they're able to do from a athletic point. And that's what worries me a little bit about them. If you're the University of Arizona, is that, it's not a great look per se. If you've got a team that, how do I put this? Houston can't score, but the problem is that if Houston can't score, we're also kind of at the stage then where, if Houston can't score, we're also kind of at the stage though where Arizona can't turn the ball over. And if Arizona doesn't turn the ball over, then they'll win games. It's pretty much that simple. I think people need to remember that. So that's kind of where we're at. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back. I'm going to give you my projections for the Washington schools. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. Let's talk now about the rest of the conference here. So we are at the stage right now with the University of Arizona where we know they're a top 10 team, but they're also playing, again, UCLA to me is the other team that's really good. I know a lot of people are trying to downplay and poo-poo UCLA. Don't do that. Because again, with UCLA, they're a really, really good team. And yes, they don't have a lot of good wins, but you can also tell though that this is a squad that's very, very good. They got Tiger Campbell, they got Jaime Jaquez, they've got a lot of really, really good players out there. And they could go far. Again, they check off a lot of boxes. Everybody saw out there that they're a good team. So, don't try to poo-poo that one. So they're both tournament teams to me. Then you got USC. I believe they're a tournament team, and you got ASU, even though they're struggling right now, and maybe Utah as well. But again, you got 4 or 5 teams right there. But I think Arizona and UCLA, no matter the records, are clearly ahead of the other ones. And I don't see that changing throughout the year. So we'll be back with you tomorrow. We're going to give you all of my predictions for the Washington schools. We're also going to talk a little bit of Arizona recruiting as well. So again, everybody out there, you have a great Wednesday. As always, it's a privilege to be on here talking with you. And again, FanDuel, check it out. Super happy that they're on board. Great stuff as always. But again, got to remember, it's a great time to be an Arizona Wildcat fan. It's always a great time to be an Arizona Wildcat fan. But when you got basketball, when you got football pulling in that direction, that's obviously really, really good stuff right there. Okay, so again, everybody out there, have a great rest of your Wednesday. I'm your host, Mike Luke, and as always, thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. We will be back with you tomorrow. Talk to you soon.